Hi, everybody. My name is Ed Ciarimboli. I'm one of the partners here at Fellerman Ciarimboli, and I'm here with Corey Suda, one of our lawyers here at the firm as well. We're in our office in Kingston, Pennsylvania today, and we're doing our first episode of Under the Hood. And people have asked, like, how did this come about? Why are we doing it? So Corey and I, specialize in handling tractor trailer cases all over the country. I'm board certified in it. Corey is studying to be board certified in it.
On the road to board certification.
He's under a lot of pressure right now. He better not fail this test. But so over the last 5 years, we've represented a lot of truck drivers that have been involved in, tractor trailer crashes all over the country. We've represented, men and women that have been working for big companies, little companies, and everything in between. And so we've started to see a lot of the kind of same questions, come up over and over again. And so we thought, why not, be a resource for the industry, especially the men and women that are out there, driving, and jump on YouTube Live and answer any questions that, folks may have about if they've been involved in the crash, what should they do? Some people have a question about, their status, whether they're independent contractors or not. And so, that was kind of the idea, of why we started, why we wanted to do this. So we put it out on social media and, kind of as a primers, letting people know that we were going to do it. We've had a bunch of people already send in questions that couldn't be on today. And so, without further delay, why don't we jump into it and answer one of the first questions, Corey? What do we got?
Yeah, so the first question comes from Joe in Wilkes-Barre. He said, my brother was killed in a tractor trailer crash in a snowstorm in Pennsylvania last year. Now his company is saying that because he's an independent contractor, there are no benefits. Is that true?
So, and this is something we see all the time, and we actually are working on this exact situation right now. And we have a case in the crash that happened in West Virginia. The driver's from Pennsylvania. He was an owner-operator, killed as a result of another truck crossed over a median and hit him. And same thing, the company is saying, hey, no, you're an independent contractor. You're not entitled to workers' compensation benefits. And so now what we're having to do is kind of dig into that and see if he is, right? And one of the things that I know you were looking at is he had kind of an interesting policy, which is, kind of unique to the trucking world.
Yeah, so this particular person, he protected himself. I mean, we always talk about protection, right? So he protected himself, and he took out an occupational accident policy on his behalf prior to his death.
Right. So how do you get an occupational hazard policy? Who did he purchase? Because I know, did he purchase that through the company?
So I think he went out on his own, actually, and purchased that. He found an insurance carrier. I don't know if the company may have helped him, said, hey, here's a broker we usually work with, but he purchased that on his own.
And that policy is giving him some benefit as a result of being killed.
Correct. There's a death benefit to that policy, and there's actually also a survival benefit.
Right.
The survival benefit only comes into play if you're married or if you have children, and they'll pay out a certain sum each month.
Right.
Otherwise, you can name a beneficiary, and that's who the death benefit gets paid out to.
And he named his mom in this case.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, his mom is the death benefit.
And so that's one. Certainly. To all of our owner operators out there, you really should look into these occupational hazard policies because it will provide some level of protection if there's not workers' compensation. And workers' compensation, I mean, every state is different. Every state has different laws, but the basic fundamental premise of workers' compensation is that if you're hurt or killed in the course and scope of your employment, there's going to be some benefits there for you. Now, we had a very similar case in a snowstorm that happened last year down in Louisiana. And when the case came to us, the company was saying, look, you're not entitled to workers' comp, you're an independent contractor. And I know we hired counsel down in Louisiana, and they fought that and won, right?
Yeah, and not only that, I mean, they didn't want to pay comp in Pennsylvania, or they didn't want, nor
Right.
in Louisiana. So,
Right.
you know, they were saying not only are you an independent contractor, but, you know, it's not proper to bring this in Pennsylvania, nor is it proper to bring in Louisiana.
Right.
We hired a workers' comp firm down in Louisiana, and they were able to get him comp, even though the crash occurred in, you know, Schuylkill County, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and wasn't one of the issues in that, I mean, it really does turn on the definition of what is an employee under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. And
Exactly.
in that particular case, our client was driving under the DOT number of the company. And so, you know, you're driving under the DOT number of the company. There is no independent contractor status under the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. So he fell within the definition of an employee, and that's how they were able to get those comp benefits down in Louisiana, because he met the definition of an employee.
Yeah, I mean, he's driving under their DOT number. I mean,
Yeah.
simple as that, right?
Yeah.
Federal Motor
Yeah.
Carrier Safety Regulations make it that simple.
Yeah.
He's operating under their DOT number, and he's an employee.
And they ended up paying for his medical and his wages
Yeah.
during the litigation, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's still getting his medical paid for. He's still out of work, still getting indemnity, wage loss.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they've picked it all up.
Now the problem, you know, with that though is, you know, Louisiana's law is different than Pennsylvania's law. Pennsylvania's law is different than, you know, Ohio's law. So it really does, like, when you're hurt or God forbid killed in one of these crashes, this is kind of the first step, like figuring out, am I entitled to workers' compensation? Is my family entitled to benefits? And then getting, you know, seeing if you have the occupational hazard policy, and then getting into the workers' compensation system, because, you know, like the Louisiana case, we had to file it in Louisiana,
Yeah.
even though the crash happened in Pennsylvania. Now, this other case that we're looking at that just happened, we're probably going to file it in Pennsylvania, even though the crash happened in West Virginia. And that's because the guy lived in Pennsylvania, and the route started in Pennsylvania, even though the crash happened in West Virginia.
Yeah, and I mean, theoretically, he signed the contract or became an employee in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah,
and,
he accepted and that's the other thing. Like, where'd you accept the load, right? And I know, you know, that's one of the things, like, look at the bill of lading. Who's the, you know, where did they pick it up? Where is it being delivered? All those things become really, really, really important to try to figure out whether you're going to end up being in the have a workers' compensation claim and be entitled to pursue it.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, this particular case, crash happens in West Virginia. We have a Pennsylvania resident,
Yeah.
and the company is Illinois,
Yeah.
right? So there's 3 different states that you could potentially file
Yeah.
this workers' comp claim in. Each of those states have different laws of
Totally
what you're
different.
entitled to, you know, if you're wrongful death,
Yeah.
you know, death beneficiary.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's really important to know what you're doing.
And let's stay on the workers' comp subject for a minute, because it's one of the biggest, you know, areas that we initially have to deal with whenever we get involved in a case. Here's the other thing: what if your company doesn't have workers' compensation, right?
Yeah.
Then what do you do? We have that situation going on, you know, right now on a case that happened in Colorado. Our client lives in Illinois. Company doesn't have workers' compensation, and so now in most states, if you don't have workers' compensation, you can have a direct action against your own company, especially if the company had a hand or played a role in causing that crash. Meaning, you know, if the brakes were bad, tires are bad, whatever it may be. So that happens all the time. I mean, there's so many companies that are running around out there in the United States, unfortunately, without any workers' compensation at all.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, luckily most states like Pennsylvania allow you to sue your company if they don't have workers' compensation insurance. So,
Yep.
I mean, you really have to know that, because otherwise you could be out of luck.
Oh,
I
totally,
mean, it's
totally.
just-
And not only you, I mean, your family.
family, right.
I mean, and that's really like where, you know, the workers' compensation system kicks in, especially if there's a death, because it's called a fatal claim petition, and that money is going to go to your family immediately, and it should, because here's the reality. The work that Corey and I, that we do in handling tractor trailer cases, those cases take a long time. I mean, they're going to take, a year, 2 years, 3 years. And so you want to fight like hell for those comp benefits if you're entitled to them.
Yeah, and don't let, workers' comp tell you that there's no death claim. Just if you're not so basically what happens if you're going to get a death claim if you have a wife or a spouse,
right,
or if you have children. People will always just leave it at that.
Yeah.
There is another provision though that allows you to get a death, your family to get a death benefit if you provide that family member with some assistance.
If there's if they qualify as some type of dependent.
Correct.
Right. Because that's, in the West Virginia case, he was giving money to his mom and helping out with the family. Yeah.
He paid for her car insurance. He paid
Right,
for her
right,
car note.
right.
So,
Yeah.
that could show that she was a dependent of her son and entitled to her to workers, the death benefit under comp.
Yeah, and all those things, are really going to help in the long run in the third party case as well. But it's really, really important to get over that hurdle, initially in the workers' compensation system. And that's why the other thing is, like, a piece of advice to all the men and women that are out there on the road, make sure that you got somebody at home that's keeping track of all these documents, because in the event that you're, hurt or killed in a crash, you need quick access to those documents, because they are going to become very, very, very critical in any case that you're going to pursue. So don't keep everything in your truck. We've had so many cases where people are like, where's your, where's the contract? Where's this? Where's that? They're like, it's in, it was in the truck, which the truck burned to death, burned to the ground. So now it's like, well,
I mean, how many times have we found these documents when we were inspecting the trucks?
Every time. I mean, so it is very infrequent. Actually, the case in West Virginia is one of the first cases where, our client. I mean, it's a very sad case, but his sister and mom had all the documents and have been able to get us those in a real timely manner and really really help. So, what other questions we got so far?
Yeah,
this is fun.
Yeah, this is a good time.
This is easy. way easier than being in court and getting yelled at by a judge. That's for sure.
Right, exactly. Well, and we're on live now, so Ed can't yell at me now.
Right.
So,
he'll likely screw something up, but not right now.
All right. So the next one says, I was transporting a sealed load when the load shifted and my truck flipped over. Broke a number of bones in my body, and now the loading company is refusing to pay for medical bills. What should I do?
Yeah. Boy, man, this has become, I would say, in the last couple of years, 10 years ago, you had, a truck driver would pull up to a loading dock. The guy would drive the forklift out, load everything. Truck driver, they close the doors, truck driver drives away. But now you got what's called a 3PL, you got a 4PL, you got specific logistic companies that do nothing but loading. So the first hurdle in something like this is trying to figure out who the heck is responsible for the loading, right? Because if it was did they say it was a sealed load?
It was a sealed load.
So if it's a sealed load, and so whatever what you have to understand with a sealed load is the load actually there's a on the back. There's it almost looks like a zip tie type of thing, and it gets sealed, right? And so that cannot be cut until it reaches its destination. So whoever is doing the loading, they load it, they shut the doors, they seal it. The driver has nothing to do with that, or usually has nothing to do with it. There are sometimes where the driver will load it and seal it, but that is very, 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 very infrequent. It is far more frequent that driver pulls up to a loading dock. Sometimes they're picking up a already sealed load and just leaving, right?
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time.
All the time,
they have no idea what they're even carrying.
No, not at all. They'll get a bill of lading, and that'll tell them what's in the load.
Yeah.
But it's already been preloaded. Now, here's the issue, is trying to figure out. All right, well, that company that's shipping the load, did they hire another company to do the loading? that happens a lot, right? Especially in situations where you have these massive warehouses where it's you got shippers that are depositing stuff in these warehouses, and so now in the warehouse, that's a whole nother entity. So you got the shipper who's shipping it to a particular location, and then they're picking it up, and now that shipper has arranged for warehouse whatever to load and seal. And so now you have you're going to have not a case essentially against the shipper unless there's some issues between the shipper and that company, but you got to figure out, all right, what is this company's role, where he picked it up? Did that company load it, or did they offload it to somebody else? Did they hire somebody else? So this becomes really complicated. The case, honestly, I mean, it's not a super complex case in terms of like negligence about the load not being properly maintained.
Yeah, I mean, we could do an inspection and figure out that the load wasn't loaded properly. That's easy.
Look, trucks shouldn't fall over. I mean, it's just that's a pretty easy one. We could, that's an easy one to figure out. Like, look, there's certain ways that these tractor trailers are supposed to be loaded, and if they're not loaded properly and it tips over, that's usually an improper loading case, right? But trying to figure out who loaded it, when they load, how it was loaded, and who's going to be responsible for that. That's good. That's a pain in the butt.
Right, and that's the question, right? So how do you figure that out?
Right. And a lot of times I think, one of the first things that we like to do is, over the years handling these cases, we have been able to establish some relationships with trucking companies, adjusters, whatever. And so we reach out and we're like, look, we don't want to go chasing a ghost here. If the shipping company wasn't responsible for loading, then just tell us who was, and then we'll start to do our investigation with them.
Yeah, I mean, going back to our last question, workers' comp is a great way to get this information.
No question about it.
Right?
I was just going to say, what about workers' comp?
Yeah, I mean, because the reality is a lot of times these companies just aren't going to give you the bill of lading, the documents, right? So you have two options: file a lawsuit, or get it through workers' comp.
Yeah, and by the way, so this is, again, to touch on the workers' comp in this situation, so important. When this happens, for you to make a report, not only to the company that you were driving for, but make a report to the facility where you picked that load up from, because you need to show that there's notice that this, that you did, because otherwise, if it's a workers' compensation system in the in a state that has a fault-based system, they could be saying no, this is your fault, and as a result of it being your fault, you're not entitled to comp, right? So immediately something like this happens, make a report to whoever you're driving for at that time, and then make a report to the facility. And then Corey's right, now work through the comp system to try to get some of this initial information.
Right, and so Pennsylvania's a no fault state.
No fault. Yeah.
Right. So
tell them what that means and how that differs from a fault-based system.
Sure. So in Pennsylvania and workers' comp, all you have to do is prove that you were hurt, you were injured, and you were injured at work during the course and scope of your employment. That's all you have to prove, and you're entitled to wages and to your medical bills being paid.
Right.
Now, that compared to
doesn't matter if you did something really stupid at work. You're still entitled to workers' comp.
Exactly. And then in a fault-based state, you have to prove that someone else is at fault for this injury.
Yeah.
But I can guarantee, and I mean, Pennsylvania, it's no fault, right? So you should automatically get wages. You should automatically get medical bills. Here you have there's some broken bones that you sustained.
Yeah.
You have to look at the comp document, because there's going to say a description of injury. Have you ever seen that list every injury that these people
Oh,
have?
never,
Like-
never. No, it usually says like you could have like catastrophic injuries, and you look at the comp document, it's like broken fingernail.
Yeah, sprain and strain.
Yeah, sprain, strain,
Yeah.
sprain, strain of an ankle, and
Yeah.
all I mean,
And
we've
you-
had cases like literally like a below the knee amputation.
Yeah.
They're like, well, ligament, it's a ligament strain. We're like, or the leg is gone.
Right.
One, so
Like if that's the description of injury, theoretically, that's all they have to pay your medical bills.
That's
for.
right. That's
so that's when you file that's why when you start litigating the comp case, and then you can start sending out subpoenas to
Yeah.
these companies to actually get these documents.
yeah, and so when Corey just touched on like getting the information, that is one of the things that you got to get the people that know what the hell they're doing in this area of the law, because you could be out of the box. Like if somebody's not familiar and doing this kind of work like we do it all the time, they may just glance over that. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. We have a case right now where there was a mislabeling of a chemical, and it really significantly injured one of our clients. And they had gone to a firm that doesn't really do a lot of tractor trailer cases, and they looked at it and like, yeah, we don't see any case here. And then they brought it over to us, and we took one look at it, and we're like, wait a second, you absolutely have a case, and here's why. Because the rules and regulations, like the person that's shipping the chemical has an absolute responsibility to make sure that it's classified correctly, labeled correctly, etc. And you could backtrack that the whole way to the shipper, whoever shipped this particular chemical. And so, if fortunately for that individual, if he had listened to that firm that, again, they don't do a lot of tractor trailer cases, or any for that matter, if he had simply listened to to them, he would not have pursued anything. And now he has an avenue for for recovery. So like what Corey's talking about in terms of like these subpoenas and everything, you got to be able to know exactly who you're going to subpoena information from.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't know the names of the company, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And I always say, like, a motor vehicle case and a tractor trailer case, two completely different things.
Dramatically different.
Two completely
Yeah,
different
I mean,
things.
we've I can't tell you how many times like we've looked at stuff and people are like, well, we just thought it was like a big car wreck, and it is absolutely 1,000,000% different. And I'll give you a good example. Corey just resolved a case in a snowstorm, in a snow squall, and like you had to manage through two different court systems. I mean, like 4 or 5 days of mediation.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is like the complexity of what what we're doing, and he did a great job in managing that and getting it all resolved. But if you had handled that as a red car hits blue car,
yeah, it never gets resolved.
Never.
Right?
Never.
Because, I mean, in that particular case, there's 20 defendants in that case.
yeah, 20 defendants. I mean, how many people died?
4 people died.
4 people died. Some people they were burned, like
Yeah.
they were burned beyond recognition. So I mean, it was it's a really catastrophically bad case. So
I mean, not to mention our client got sued in that case.
yeah. That's
Like,
the other thing. Our
you know.
client got sued as well because it was a pileup,
Yeah.
pileup case. So you got to have good relationships with the other lawyers that are involved in order to make sure everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction. To get a good recovery for the client, which we did.
Yeah, and I mean, his estate had defense counsel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his,
Yep.
the carrier that he was driving for, they hired defense counsel for
Yeah.
him. So you got to make sure you're working with, defense counsel. You don't want to be sending the wrong stuff. I mean,
And Corey Corey just had a baby, and so he got 4 days off of like changing diapers, attending these mediations. So
I also think-
his wife Maddie, you are a saint. You're going right to heaven dealing with that.
I think that was about 5 days after she was born.
There you
too.
go.
So that's how much time off I got.
Yeah, exactly. What else we got?
All right, let's go to the next question. All right, so this is an interesting one. This probably happens all the time, honestly. This person got a speeding ticket in this personal vehicle and they want to know if they have to report it to his boss at the trucking company.
You do, right? Excuse me. So, here's why. Because you are required to self-report violations, whether they're in a CMV or whether they're in a personal vehicle. Your company is going to do an annual review. And this, look, it may be a 5-mile over speeding ticket. That's no big deal, right? However, it may be a 30-mile over speeding ticket in a school zone. That's a different story, and that's a big deal as it relates to your company, right? So, what you don't want to do is not report it, and now, hey, 6 months later, you get involved in a crash, and unfortunately, now you're sitting across in a deposition from somebody like me or somebody like Corey, and we're saying, well, you knew you had this violation. Why didn't you report it to your company? And now your company's saying, hell, if he would have reported it, we would have done X, Y, or Z. So it kind of just shows a pattern of bad behavior. And if you just get out in front of it, you're likely going to be okay. Again, unless the facts are so bad, that your company's going to be like, dude, you're going, you're going 30 miles over in a school, a school zone.
Well, yeah, and this goes for anything. Not only speeding, but say you got a DUI in your personal vehicle. This stuff needs to be reported because we're going to find out about it.
We're going to find out about it. And here's the other thing. If your company is actually doing the annual reviews as the federal motor carrier safety regulations require, then you're going to have to sign an affidavit allowing your company to get your driving record. That's it, right? Because you're going to have a license, a commercial driver's license. You're not going to have another license, right? You could have one license basically. So you're going to have a commercial driver's license, and that's going to go on there. So they're going to find out about it. And God forbid if they're not doing that, then that's a whole, cascade of problems, because now they're not doing annual reviews. And then, we get involved in a case and they're like, well, what else aren't they doing?
Yeah, just be honest about it, right?
Yeah.
That's the easiest way, because if you're honest, we're going to find it. We're going to take your deposition. If you're honest about it, it makes you look better. It makes your company look better.
Yeah.
Just be honest. And, like Ed said at the start, how many truck drivers do we actually, people hear truck accidents and they think, we just represent the people that were, in their personal cars. How many truck drivers do we represent?
I would say right now, man, right now, I would bet you at least 50% of the cases that the commercial motor vehicle cases that we have, we represent, truck drivers that have been hit by another trucker, right? I would say at least half. So and here's why. Look, you guys, you men and women are out there on the road every day. And so, one of the things that we always, try to stress is these rules are in place not only for the safety of like people that aren't driving trucks, they're in place for the, people that are driving trucks every day, because those are the people that are more likely to encounter another truck driver.
Yeah.
And they want to know, they want to have the peace of mind that the rules that they're following are the same rules that that company is following, and so that everybody's going to be out on the road, in a safe manner. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. Yeah. And there are a lot of companies, unfortunately, out there cutting corners, and that leads to crashes, and crashes lead to fatalities, and fatalities lead to lives shattered.
Yeah. So if you are a truck driver out there, you own your own company, don't cut corners, right? Just the rules are in place for a reason.
Just
follow the rules, and things.
Yeah, here's the other thing: bad things happen, right? There's no question about it, and there are accidents do happen. Some of those accidents are truly not preventable, right? But make sure that your house is in order, because if your house is in order, then you're gonna sleep well at night, right? You're gonna make sure you have enough insurance coverage. You're gonna make sure you got primary and excess excess coverage, so that if you are involved in a crash, there's not that potential that you can have that stuff taken away from you. And so those are some basic things that people make sure, like, your drivers are doing their electronic logs, make sure they're doing their DVIRs, their daily vehicle inspection reports, make sure you're following the rules of hiring safe drivers. It's all spelled out. And I know it could be a pain in the butt sometimes to follow all these, but if you do them and there is a crash, now you're going to be able to say, I did everything I possibly could. Hey, this bad thing happened, and I'm really sorry about it, but this was truly just an accident.
Well, yeah, and I'll give you an example. I mean, remember the case we tried a couple of years ago? Totally preventable crash. Our guy was a tractor trailer driver. He actually rear-ended another tractor trailer. Completely preventable because the tractor trailer that our client rear-ended didn't have his lights operating.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And when I deposed the owner of the company, he's like, I wasn't really paying attention to the maintenance because I was too busy running an indoor soccer facility.
Right,
so I didn't care about the rules. I didn't care about. But then we get to trial, and there was a punitive damage claim. Mm-hmm. So his assets could have been at play if we got an excess verdict. And he was terrified that we could take his house, we could take his soccer facility. Well, if he just complied with if he did his job at that point, he wouldn't have to worry about that. Now, we didn't go after, we ultimately didn't go after his assets, but I mean, he was terrified, if you remember.
Listen, that hangs over people's head in these cases. And I will tell you, like, we're talking about insurance, for a minute. We just had a case where the trucking company had $1 million of insurance. That was it. And they hit a school bus full of kids, right? And, our client was catastrophically injured. And we absolutely refused. We refused. They just wanted to walk away from it. We said, no, like, this company had a ton of money. And so, they ended up having to dig into their pocket in order to settle the case. And that could have completely been avoided if this company had been, analyzing their risk appropriately, purchasing, the right insurance. But I mean, there's so many companies that are just running around out there with
minimal
insurance, and the problem is, look, like, if you run into somebody like Corey or myself, and we have an amazing team here that works on these cases, and we start digging into it, and we find out, you're hiding assets, or you find out that you have, a substantial amount of revenue, then we, on behalf of our clients, again, a lot of them are truck drivers, we have an obligation on behalf of their families to go after that stuff. And so, to kind of the people that are in the industry, there's some outstanding insurance companies that write truckers, truck policies. I mean, Great West is one that immediately comes to mind. That company is like, they're at the top of the food chain. They do great work. They write great policies. They do a great analysis. They're just a really good, company. Like, pick up the phone and call them and ask them questions and, like, understand what the risk ultimately may be.
I mean, you're operating a vehicle that's at least 26,000 pounds.
Right.
I mean,
most often 80,000
right.
pounds.
I mean, it's not going to cause, more likely than not, it's not causing minimal injuries. So
truck versus car. Truck always wins.
Yeah.
Always wins. So what? Time's flying by here, man. What else? What else we got?
Well, I know we're running out of time, but I do want to get to this one because I think this is really important, and this probably happens to these truck drivers a lot. So this person has a small company, and one of his drivers fell asleep and crashed.
Ooh.
Right. Person was pretty significantly injured, and he wants the case settled. The insurance company is dragging it on, not settling the case, not paying the fair value. What can he do?
Yeah. So believe it or not, we've actually acted as what's called personal counsel for some trucking companies in this particular type of situation, because, the insurance company is not your friend, right? So they have their interest is different than your interest. Your interest is get this settled, get it behind me, right? I don't want to deal with this, especially that's a definite punitive damage case, right?
Absolutely.
That is 100%. The hours of service rules. If somebody falls asleep, that means they're fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
If they're fatigued, that means they're impaired. If they're impaired, that means you have a potential case for reckless conduct.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, there's many studies out there. Paired driving is just as bad as drunk driving.
If not worse.
Right? Falling asleep.
Yeah, if not worse. So, so you have an impaired driver. You're going to be facing a claim for reckless indifference, which leads to punitive damages. And so, as the owner of that company, look, that person that represents the insurance company who's been assigned to your case, you guys are at odds here, especially because they should be looking out for your best interest. They should be writing letters to the insurance company telling them, settle this case, settle this case, settle this case. And the reality is completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tell them what the reality is here.
I mean, the reality is they're not looking out for your best interest. They're looking out for the insurance carrier's best interest.
Right.
Because guess who hires the defense lawyer?
Yeah, the insurance company. They want the next file, right? I mean, they want the next file and the next file and the next file because it's a little different. So they work on an hourly rate. We work on a contingent fee basis, meaning that we're not getting, our clients aren't getting anything. We're not getting paid unless we're successful, right? And so that's why people are always like, well, frivolous lawsuits. Like, look, we're not taking anything that we do not think we're going to be successful on.
I mean, putting our own money into it.
It's bad business, really, really, really bad business. But on the flip side of that, you have some, the insurance companies are assigning files to defense lawyers and defense firms. And so, and by the way, there are outstanding defense lawyers, out there. And we have a lot of really, really, really good friends in the defense bar who this does not apply, not apply to them at all. Not even a little bit. But you have some other firms that are handling claims from, like
lower level.
Lower level insurance companies, and so they want to keep getting more files. And so now their interest is different than your interest, right? And so that's why it's so important. You need a lawyer, what's called personal counsel. You need personal counsel that's going to be looking out for your best interest and telling the insurance company, settle the damn case.
Well, and it's so important because in this particular case, there's going to be punitive damages.
Oh, yeah.
What is the insurance carrier going to tell you? Yeah. We don't cover punitive damages.
That's right. You probably already got a letter saying that, right?
Right.
You probably already got a letter saying there's potential punitive damages. Punitive damages are not covered by insurance. You need to, and they won't tell you should get personal counsel. They'll say you need to make sure that you're looking out for your own personal assets, et cetera, et cetera. Here is what we will tell you. Truck owners, in that situation, you need your own lawyer. In addition to the lawyer that's defending the insurance company, you need somebody that's going to be able to stand between you and that insurance company and make sure that they are doing what is right by you and getting the case set up. Because, listen, here's the reality. That case goes to trial. Let's say you have $1 million policy and it's a $10 million verdict. You've now got to dig into your pocket for $9 million. And if you don't have it, now what happens?
You're done, right? And, this particular case, right? So they might say, well, there's a punitive damage claim against the driver. He fell asleep. How could the company stop that? These trucks, most of them, are equipped with dash cam.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And if any trucking lawyer worth his salt, if they get the dash cam, not just from the crash, but from the days and weeks and hours leading up to the crash, and could show that this is preventable, well, then it's really on the employer because they didn't supervise this person properly.
Because now you got a bad crash, and what Corey's talking about is now, look, if that's what we would do, right? I could tell you immediately, like, we would get involved in the case, and the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking for all of that data, because that data is going to do one of two things. That data is either going to show us that there is no case, although in this case, or it's going to show that there's a pattern of really bad behavior. And if there's that pattern of really bad behavior, now this case is getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's what you want to get out ahead of and get out in front of, to make sure that this case is getting put to rest as quickly as it can, so that you can move on with your business, you can move on with your life, and not, unfortunately have it dragged into a courtroom.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's expensive, but as soon as you get that letter from the insurance carrier saying that there's punitive damages in play, you should really get personal counsel.
100%.
Because then they could apply pressure to the defense counsel
100%.
and make sure that they're working in your best interest.
Well, and you're also going to have a sounding board, right? Yeah. So, whenever something sounds a little wonky, that lawyer for the insurance company is telling you, you got a sounding board. You could say, hey, what is this? How's this sound to you? And make sure that it's somebody that really does also work in this type or this area of law, so that they can speak the same language, because it is becoming far more prevalent. That the insurance companies are kind of dictating when the case should settle, for how much the case should settle, and that's their right, certainly. But when you got cases that are very clear like this one, and now it potentially can expose that trucking company to financial ruin, then you need somebody that's going to be able to really advocate on your behalf against the insurance company.
Well, especially when the liability limits are decreased by defense costs, right? How many times we see that?
An eroding policy.
Right, exactly. So there may be a $1 million policy, but that policy erodes based off how much the defense is working on the case.
How much the defense is working on the case, as well as if there's multiple claims, right? That's also potentially going to erode the policy. So these are all things that you need to understand those, right? You need to understand, is it an eroding policy? Are there multiple claims? How does that affect it? And just don't sit back, the owners and operators here, don't sit back and just think, oh, well, this insurance company is going to do right by me. Really you really should get personal counsel involved early on and make sure that they are in fact doing that.
Yeah, because the reality is that $1 million policy is not a $1 million policy.
It goes fast. And by the way, $1 million policy, when you have a catastrophic claim, it goes like that, right? I mean,
it sounds like a lot of money, but when you realize the nature of what happens to these people, the significant injuries, the amount of treatment they're going to need in the future, $1 million is nothing.
I will tell you, I don't know if we have any case right now that we're working on where the medical bills are less than six or seven figures.
Yeah.
I mean, look, these things,
that all needs to be paid back.
Oh yeah, it has to be paid back. So I mean, you got things like, you got life flight bills. You got prolonged hospital stays. I mean, all of surgeries, all these things, that adds up quick. And I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to inflation. The medical costs are not going down; they're only going up. And Corey's right, like, that's got to be paid back. That gets paid back out of the money that's available. So these things get, those cases add up to $1 million very, very, very quickly. Very quickly. We got. You want
to do one more?
Yeah, we got time for one more. Let's do one more.
All right. This is a good one. So I was on my way home after dropping off a load and was rear-ended by another truck driver. My company is saying there's no workers' comp because I already dropped off the load.
That's an interesting one. So, again, kind of state specific, but let's just use Pennsylvania for the moment. So Pennsylvania, this would be an interesting question. So whenever you're still under what's called dispatch, right? Until you get to where you're going, meaning you dropped off the load. If you're going back to the facility, you're still technically under dispatch because they could call you and have you go pick up another, pick up another load. Now, Pennsylvania has in workers' comp this law called, the comings and goings, which means if your employment is ended for that day, you would not be entitled to workers' comp, or if you were just going to work, you would not be entitled to workers' comp there either. So this would be a very, very interesting question, and I think it would really turn on what's the company's rule after dropping off. Like,
well, yeah, I don't even know if we have enough information to answer it, because if this person takes his truck home with him,
that's true too, right?
So say he drops off the load, but then keeps his truck,
Yeah.
then he would still be on duty until he got home.
He would. Yeah. So Corey's right. This happens a lot too, and I think the answer is really going to lie in the company's policies.
Yeah.
Right. And so if the company is, if the driver is still could be sent somewhere else to pick up another load, if the driver still has available hours of service, if they're still monitoring the driver as well.
Yeah, I mean, this guy might if he's taking his truck home and the next day he's just dispatching from his house. Then he's actually on duty as soon as he leaves his house too.
So, I think that that's again. Now this is going to come back to like all these questions. All these documents are going to become very, very, very critical to proving this case in the workers' compensation setting. Now, this particular, he was hit by another truck, right? That's what happened?
Yes, he was rear-ended by another truck.
Yeah. So this is the exact situation where do not delay. And I mean it. Like, you hear a lot of lawyers say, "Oh, don't delay, whatever." But like, this is like the situation. Like, do not delay. And here's why: they're fighting the workers' compensation claim already. You need to get that case, the comp case, into litigation immediately, because that's going to take a while, right? Mm-hmm. And that means the longer that you wait, the longer that you're going to go without getting wage benefits. And you're going to go without getting your medical paid. And you probably need medical treatment, right? So the quicker that you get that case moved along through the comp system and then hopefully are successful in it, the quicker that you're going to be able to get those benefits paid. The longer, every day that you wait backs that up another day. Now, put aside, for the third party aspect of the case for a moment, the guy who hit you, because that's going to be a whole separate litigation, separate animal. But on the comp end of it, that medical treatment and those wages are going to help you in your third party case, right? So there is no reason that in that situation you should wait even one day to pick up the phone and start down that road.
Yeah, and just thinking through this, say he's not entitled to comp. I mean, there's still avenues to get paid on that outside the third party, right? Because this truck should have underinsured or uninsured motorist coverage, and there should be a med pay provision of that policy.
There should be a med pay, potentially a wage loss provision on it, under or uninsured motorist coverage. And then the other aspect is, you gotta get this case into litigation quickly and get it, start getting it moved through, the paces of litigation, because at the end of the day, like if you're out of work and you can't work and your family's dependent upon that income, what are you going to do? Right. So you got to, these are going to be things that you got to get moving on.
And just kind of going back to about workers' comp and, the importance of getting it into the system quick, right? The insurance carrier, say they found that this person was in the course and scope of his employment, right? And all these medical bills got paid. The third party is likely going to say that some of these injuries were not caused by the crash.
Oh, of course.
Right? But if you have an insurance carrier or a judicial opinion from the workers' comp judge saying that these injuries are related to the crash, they're going to the third party is going to have a hard time disputing that in the actual.
It's going to go a lot further in the third party case as well. And then here's the other reason that you want to get this thing moving quickly, like. There's going to be cameras on that other truck, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be a forward-facing camera and a driver-facing camera. And you got to get those, right? You got to get those. And by the way, real quick, I've spoken all over the country, for various trucking seminars and done a whole bunch for some trucking companies, and I've been asked this question a lot, which is, by trucking companies, oh, the driver facing cameras, should we turn them off? Absolutely not, right? I'm telling you right now, you turn your cameras off, you are making Corey's job, my job, so much easier. And here's why. Because every single camera company out there says driver-facing cameras, and the studies show it, driver-facing cameras reduce accidents, fatalities, and injuries. So now, if that is what they do, you've now made a conscious decision to eliminate the ability to reduce accidents, fatalities, and injuries. It is a terrible idea. And whoever told you guys to, shut off the driver-facing cameras, bad advice, right? And bad advice. And the other, you'll hear, well, they don't want guys like Corey or you to get a hold of it. Well, that's certainly true. But this loops back to what we talked about before with personal counsel. Look, if you got a bad case, get out in front of it.
Exactly.
Don't be fighting into litigation on it. Get out in front of it.
And if you're a truck driver and your company's doing this, I'd probably be looking for a new company to work for.
Yeah.
But if I were you, I would at least notify the company that they should not be doing this.
Absolutely. At a minimum. Because now they're telling you. They are very clearly telling you, or telegraphing, we don't care about safety, right? We don't care about safety. We would rather not know. We'd rather have our head in the sand and not know if drivers are falling asleep, not know if drivers are, on their phones,
watching
YouTube, whatever it may be.
Watching Under the Hood.
Watching. Yeah, I mean, listen, we've had all this stuff. So if your company is like kind of telling you this, well, we don't really care. Like that's not the shop that you want to be working for.
Puts you at risk.
It puts you at risk,
and everyone else on the road,
and everybody else, everybody else on the road. It puts everybody at risk. So yeah, and I've heard it a bunch. Like, oh, we've been given advice that we should turn off our driver-facing cameras. That is bad advice. I'm just telling you, it's bad advice. Don't do it. Keep those cameras on, because they will catch more of the cases that are frivolous than not. And so that's another reason that you want to make sure you have all of those things, on, and make sure that the drivers are doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? I mean,
monitor those cameras.
That's it.
You have the ability to drop in on them.
That's right. You have the ability to monitor them in real time.
Yeah.
And especially now with the AI component of it as well. I mean, these cameras, I mean, they're all, they're all
email notification immediately.
It's I mean, as a safety director of a company, you literally could be sitting watching us and get a notification. Hey, my driver just nodded off and ran a red light or whatever it may be, and now you can proactively remove problematic drivers. I'll finish. We'll wrap up here, but I'll give you the worst. This is the worst story. We had a case involving, guy slams into the back of our, clients. He's completely annihilated. And, what happened was the driver-facing camera was turned off, right? And if it was on, what they would have seen was this guy literally drinking in this truck. Not only that, and this is why these things are so important, because that was obviously a very preventable crash, but that is an action that is called a triggering event, right? If somebody is drinking alcohol, while they're driving, it's a triggering event, and they would have seen that he had been doing that repeatedly in the past 60 days, taking him out of the cab.
Yep.
This never
happens.
It never happens. And so that is truly, the benefit. They can really catch a lot of that, that bad behavior. So I think that we're coming up on the hour. So we are out of time, but this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we're gonna try to do this at least once a month, and you'll see us promoted on social. When the next one is going to be, but really, thank you. Thanks, Corey. Thank you, everybody that joined in and watched us. And listen, have a great rest of the day Wednesday. If you're in the East Coast, stay warm. It is cold as hell. It is bitter cold. It looks like we're getting some more weather this weekend. So, stay safe. And on that, truck drivers, slow down. Winter weather.
Yep.
Use extreme caution. That's it, right? Slow down. So, all right, everybody. Thank you very much. And
thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. We're going to sign off.